I'm here just before lunch to talk about bloody thermostats, so don't run away. There's a couple of things I'm going to do first. One is I apologize. I will swear through most of this. And the second thing is it's a bit of a health warning. We always do. Most people who tell this story are people that have been there from the beginning. So we do come across a little bit like proud dads, telling the story about their kids. So apologies if it comes across that way. So I'm going to talk about a story which is really, I think, got two great things. One, which is a product at the heart of it, and the second part being it come from a 200-year-old energy business. So let's get on. We've probably heard this a couple of times today, where technology's done so much for us in so many different industries. Actually, I sort of rephrase that a little bit. Technology for us is the enabler, but really, I think what's happened is almost the religion of product design has done loads for us in loads of different industries. And everyone can give their own examples here of the way I sort of describe that product experience is when you can create that magical moment of when you're using someone's product and you really feel as though you're experiencing something that no one else has ever experienced before, and you can't wait to tell your friends and family. Obviously, I've put up Airbnb here, or it could be with Uber, which is one. I often use that, and Halo. But the real point of this is you are trying to just remove that problem, that annoyance in everyday lives. And a huge amount has happened, as I say, in a number of industries. I've just shown you, obviously, a couple of types of travel, but whether it's restaurants, etc. And also technology and product it is enabling loads of other things, and obviously with health as well, and even touching us. So it's in our lives and also touching our lives. Now, one of the challenges for us, and obviously what we're looking at, is really outside of the lounge, our industry, our part of the world, has just been completely forgotten. Now, I've been using this image for probably about 12 months. I've only just realized that because of the way you turn it up round, night is actually turned upside down. So I have no idea how a customer is supposed to use that, and I think it's the pins, and one of the guys used to call it the Vulcan death grip you need to be able to turn it around. And I've come from a background of nothing to do with heating. I have no idea about heating or energy. I understand about designing experiences. And first part of my career, I used to be in electrical retailing. If you imagine that as something that you bought from John Lewis or a Dixon's, it'd have the highest returns rate of every product they've ever sold. It's just that it was such a low barrier, low level that these guys were designing at and producing, not really thinking about the customer at all. So that's the product, that was the problem. But before I talk about that, I'm going to talk about how we set it up, which I think is as special as the product. So the problem was identified by British Gas a few years back, but quite rightly, and I think they take a huge amount of credit for this, that they understood that they weren't the right people to be able to solve that problem. They weren't the right people to be able to go and design that product and that experience and that digital experience. So what they did was they got in. They were going to get in a few different people, and the reason for that is because if you look at the business that we've grown, which hopefully most of you have heard of Hive now, and think about the competitors we've got, it's very different to British Gas and our parent company. If you think about it, it's the market that doesn't even really exist today. Even a couple of years on, it's still nascent. Very uncertain. I mean, we're not even sure whether IoT is going to be that thing that everyone thinks it's going to be. I mean, if you look at the US last year, they had their first year of decline in IoT. So, there's a number of different things, and very, very fast moving. As I said, sort of the competitors that are in this space. So we took, there's basically a list of sort of 10 things that we said to the British Gas board that we would only do this thing for you if you follow these rules, if you like. And I'm just going to pull out a couple of the key ones. They may sound really small, but they are so important. So as I said, sort of describe myself, which is got half my life in retail. I was lucky enough to be in the software and games industry as it started a long time ago, so I've got no hair. But majority of people in our teams are from telco, from TV, they're from tech, they're devs. they're not energy people. And I think the reason, and a good reason for that is because we're going to look at the problem very, very differently. Again, in this type of forum, and and the types of people in the audience here, saying that you work in a lean startup, agile environment doesn't really mean much. Most of you be nodding, saying, "Yeah, of course you do." But again, it's a big difference to say to a corporate, a FTSE 100 corporate, that you're not going to be working waterfall, and I can't tell you when that product's going to come out, because it's only going to come out when I'm happy with it and I'm happy with the experience that's going to be given to our customers. And then location, again, sounds such an odd one, but location is so important. So we're based in the central London, West End. To be fair, we're probably a little bit too far out of around here and Shoreditch way to be getting all the devs, but we can drag them a little bit to the West End, luckily. But what we weren't ever going to be able to do is drag them out to Staines. The product people, design, devs, they are data scientists. They are absolutely in demand. So don't put any barriers in the way. And really, the location. So talk about the address of it, but it's as much as the address. But what's that place that you're going to create for them? We create almost like a lab type environment. So we want you to do your best work there. Come up with those great ideas. This is where we're going to bring these to market. But the key part of our list wasn't all about us. It was about also how we were going to work with British Gas and now Centrica now. The first two are very important. So we needed to have our equivalent on the other side, but they knew that they weren't going to have any say in the product. They were literally going to be taking that thing and then distributing it and selling it. So we needed that right docking. And then the other part is around air cover, and this is really, really important. You need that air cover as much, and I'm going to talk about sort of how we've evolved over the last few years. You have to have that air cover from that corporate. You need to make sure that they stay off and keep away from the product and design and dev guys. It's almost, I think the guys from Pixar call it, I've got to keep the stage clear for everyone to perform, and that's so true. And then you add all of these things together and the right different people, very, very, very diverse, the right location and the type of place you work, and then actually what you start to evolve is a culture. You don't put any effort into that culture, it starts to evolve itself, and that is absolutely important. You've created an environment where people know they can make mistakes and take a few risks. We want people to, as I say, to do their best work. So that's how we set up. Now, again, if we were doing this sort of chatting over in the States, again, it would be a lot. It's a lot of well, of course you're going to do it like that. And again, it's worth pointing out that we've come from a place three and a bit years ago where the main competitors for British Gas were these guys. Now I can set up very differently if they're my competitors. But to be honest, my competitors aren't those guys. They are some of the greatest innovations coming out of Silicon Valley. They're some of the biggest companies in the world, whether it's Samsung, Apple, etc. And that's why we had to set ourselves up in the right way so we could go after and battle with those guys in almost on a level playing field. So getting back to the product then. So we identified 3 key problems. I'm mainly just talking about the heating product here. So first one being the biggest one, which I've already talked about. I've got this thing, I can't bloody use it. Now, what most people do, and there are a few stats, but to be honest, I normally make these stats up as I go along. The majority of customers in the UK do not set their thermostat. It's something like 90%. We've also got a stat somewhere that says a huge amount of people don't have a full heating control. So, so they can't actually set it up correctly. So what that means is they're inefficient. And comes on to the second point, and this isn't about, I want to be green, I want to save the world. This is just about, I just don't want to leave the heating on. I don't want to be wasteful. It's not even really about saving money. I just don't want to be wasteful. And then that third one, which you saw from the picture, which is, you walk around your house and so much has been innovated and designed so beautifully that why is this thing, which, really now we call it like the heartbeat of your home, has just been left over the years, and really all that people have been worried about is just draining out cost of that product. So there were our three challenges. Also, what we did when we first set up is we needed a brand that allowed us to have maybe a slightly different conversation to British Gas, and in different markets, and maybe in different industries, and especially as we have started to do in 2016 and more in 17, is going to different countries that British Gas obviously can't go into. So that's why we created Hive, the brand. It's a younger, it's a bit more vibrant brand. It's a bit more playful at times, but the reason why the brand has worked is it's been Hive originally by British Gas. So Hive installed by British Gas makes a massive difference. So what we found in the first 12 months was the amount of improvements in modernity for British Gas by being associated to a product design brand, and then vice versa, us being associated, a startup, if you like, being associated with the British Gas brand, gave us a lot more credence as well. So, what happened with the first products? So, as we said, we set out some of those problems. So, majority of people saved energy. Most people felt more in control of their heating. So the majority of people all of a sudden could set up a schedule and they knew what they were doing rather than just turning it off, turning it on, and just hoping for the best. One stat that always amazes me, but in winter, over half our base using it every single day. It's a bloody thermostat in the end of the day, so God only knows what they're doing. But because it's so easy, they like tweaking, they like flicking up the heating or boosting the hot water or whatever they're doing. But huge engagement, massive engagement, and then 92% would recommend it. Now that was our first product. It had a piece of hardware which was probably the best that was out there, bar probably Nest at the time, but it wasn't designed purposefully. So this was mainly through the mobile app we got these scores. But it's worth pausing for a second and just, we get asked a lot, a question mainly, which is, almost what did British Gas get out of it? Because we are, the best way to, I probably skipped over this, but the best way to describe us is a little bit like, we're a startup and British Gas and Centrica are the investor. That allows us to play the way we do. But so what do we give them? We're giving them a product with, almost everyone is recommending it to family and friends, and people that are touching that product every single day. Now, I think a survey that British Gas have got is you think of your energy provider about, I think it's 3 or 4 minutes a year. So it's absolutely transformational going from that to I'm now touching something from those guys every single day. So that was the first product. Now, what's probably worth setting out as well is within the modern day of product design, I'd probably hopefully get a lot of nodding heads here, is product is not just about the physical thing or the app. It's about the absolute end-to-end, whether that's the packaging, whether that's where you buy it, where you grab hold of it. So for us, it needed to be seamless. It needed to be frictionless journey across the board. And we knew this was one of our USPs. We knew that a lot of those guys that were trying to come into our market with similar smart home products didn't have this. And if I just quickly go through it, you've got choice. Customers don't want to just buy it from British Gas. They want to buy it from anywhere. So let's work out where they want to buy it and let's put it there in an easy way to buy. So, for example, we're in Apple, we're in John Lewis, we're in Dixon's. You buy it from British Gas. You buy it directly on Hive Home. Wherever you want to get it, we're gonna make sure we're there for you. Installed. If you buy the installed version, it's installed by British Gas engineers. These guys have been coming around your houses for hundreds of years. They know boilers better than anyone else. And if you think about it, when that guy comes in and installs it, and he shows you the app for the first time, and he tidies up and cleans up his stuff, and then he leaves, that's as much of the product and the brand as anything the guys are going to put on TV. So we know for a fact that when our competition were going in and putting in the product, having to use third-party engineers, and then saying, you're on your own from here, governor, here's the app, all the best, that's the product, that's the brand. You've just ruined it at that point. So that's absolutely critical for us. I've already touched on it. For us, it's absolutely customer-centric way of product designing. So every single screen, every single touch point goes through hundreds of user testing labs. And then supporting, this is a keynote in itself. Our guys that actually take the support calls up in Glasgow have done an amazing job because we let them talk in just normal English customer language. You know, they will solve the problem, they'll have a bit of fun on the way. And to make that point, our NPS of someone who's had a problem is almost as high as if you haven't, which is unheard of, absolutely unheard of. So they've done a fantastic job of that. So that was Hive 1, really where those stats come from. And as I said, we had a piece of plastic on the wall, which was probably a bit better than everyone else's piece of plastic. So we took a step back and we really wanted to hit that point 1 on the problems, which was we want to design something beautiful and something that was really, really easy to use. So up to this point, majority of our interactions were through mobile. So we went over to San Fran and got one of the world's best industrial designers. He was very, very surprised when he came over because he thought he was going to walk into a British Gas style, corporate style office. What he walked into was very much like his own studio, you know, full of product designers, all very, very excited about getting this stuff underway. Now, Yves has an interesting way about him, as in he's a fucking rock star, but he talks very, you know, in a certain way of things he believes, almost like a religion. So one of them is, we've got too many screens in our lives, you don't need another one. I don't need another thing calling for my attention, which we all agreed on. However, I had this idea of putting an iPad on the wall. So we obviously had to battle that out, and I'm pleased to say that, you know, obviously the guy that Steve Jobs tried to recruit got his own way and said, no, this is the design we're going for. Now, the thing with Yves is, he literally wanted to look at every single part of the product. So with our teams and with their teams, what we ended up with were experts in so many different fields. So actually, sort of I joke around and sort of said, you know, we want this, no, you're getting that. Actually, what happened was it was a perfect marriage of the things that we are brilliant at, which was digital design at the time. We were getting better at industrial design. Clearly, he's the king of industrial design. But just things like we're the subject experts. We could turn on 10 or 11,000 British Gas engineers to help us design this thing. We're very, very good at customer-led design, which we'd already worked on. But to be honest, there's a few up there, but to be honest, the one I'm going to pull out is, I think he gave us the confidence that we didn't need the iPad. It really was that. Do you know what? This thing, this device, doesn't need to be like everyone else's. Doesn't need to be this massive screen that's going to do everything. Let's really work out what that customer's going to want to do with it, and then let's build that thing. So here's 3 that we ended up looking at. You know, obviously, clearly the one on the left was sort of the one we went for. We looked at 101 different designs, honed it down. We worked through every single element of the thermostat. We've actually got more IP in the back than we have on the actual design on the front. And a lot of that came from our engineers telling us easier ways to install, easier ways to put it up. So I'll tell you these stories only because they're our product stories. It's how we came to build the product. But one of the key things, I always use this image, one of the key things is when we set the product right, the thing that took us absolutely months, now bearing in mind that 90% of people can't set their thermostat, is if you don't design the experience correctly, those customer journeys, and that's how you think your customers are going to go, if you don't go through it hundreds and hundreds of times, they'll bloody do that one. Now, the problem with that is that's where you fall on the, you know, unhappy path or whatever, you know, loads of different ways of calling it. So we just went through this time and time again to make sure that those guys just got it, absolutely got it. And our key was, can we do the very first thermostat that just doesn't need a manual? Not just can they do it, 90% can't, can we do it without a manual? And that's where we ended up. So 95% of our users, by the time we got to that final product, could set this up first time without instructions. Again, it's a thermostat, so I always have to pause at this point. It's a thermostat, but that is absolutely transformation in people's lives. Being able to use something and it benefits them to be able to do that. And that's where you create that product, that magical moment. You talk to a mum, her magical moment was being able to boost the hot water so the kids can have a warm bath. Another magical moment is I'm leaving home from work, but my heating's not going to be on. You know, they're the points. It's like the halo point I think someone made earlier, which is, you know, I know it's coming. I can see it coming around the corner. That's that magical moment in product design. That's what we're all after. So, you know, as that little section summarizes is, you know, yes, we had Yves Bahar, who is an absolute rock star in industrial design. but that only worked because it was a perfect marriage with a number of very, very good product managers, even more so the engineers that are on the ground looking and installing this thing every single day, and then the thousands of customer hours that we put through that. It's the only way you can product design anything. So hopefully, clearly you've all got it in the audience, but if you haven't, go and buy it. And that's what we ended up with. We ended up with a design that took on the ambience of your room because it has a mirrored finish. We also allowed the customer to personalize the frame, different colors, similar to the mobile phone industry. And the screen only lights up when you want it. It's not shouting for your attention. When you want to do something, it wakes up. But before it wakes up, it's just sleeping, as I say, taking on the ambience of the room. So, and the result of Hive 2, I've sort of touched on a couple of these. You know, clearly we had a decent version of Hive 1. We needed it to be better, twice as good. We also did a survey on what was out there at the time, and which one would you choose, which we did well on. One that's probably worth pointing out is that usability score. Usability score, the one we used, is used by all electrical retailers. The 78 points, just to put it into context, if you buy a Samsung TV, they're brilliant, lovely design of them. They're probably hitting about 60. If you get an iPhone, they're probably hitting about an 80. So we've got a 78-point usability score on something only 12 months ago no one could use. So again, absolutely transformational. Coming back to that point around what we're giving BG, critically acclaimed by tech and design as well as our customers, but for 2 years on the run, winning the Cool Brands Award. So when you put it into its brass tacks, British Gas has won a Cool Brands Award. British Gas is in Apple. That wouldn't have happened 3 years ago. So very, very proud of it. And I think the last announcement we made, back in the summer, we were at 400,000, clearly well above that now after things like Black Friday. And then we move on to the new era, which is that was smart heating, but obviously now we need to tackle smart home. So we brought out a few more products at the start of the year. We wanted to design them in a certain way. Again, certain products, we need them to drop back, and we need them to be lost in the home. Some of the things that we're going to bring out in 2017, we want them to jump out a little bit more again, like the thermostat. But just taking every single thing we can. So just picking out one, the long thing in the middle next to the plug, that's a motion sensor. You imagine most motion sensors are square. Because they're square, you put them in the corner, they stick out in the room. We've made ours thin like a pencil, and it sits right into the corner of the room. So we're trying to just redefine and reimagine every part, every product that we're looking at in the smart home. The biggest product release, though, last year was our second version of our app. Bringing out a load of products, the only problem with that, it brings out loads of complexity. So what we had before was an app that could do heating really, really well. With a touch of a button, everyone knew what they were doing within 5 seconds of looking at the app. But then how do we move to, all of a sudden, 5, 10 products, and when those products start interacting with each other? So again, the product design team had to build a way of presenting this in a way that customers just get it. They get it first time. So what we did was we created a dashboard. The dashboard is going to be customizable, so customers can, that could be one room. It only shows you what you want to see, and we're trying not to show too much. So, as you can see, I'm going to click on iron, that's not on, downstairs heating's on, hot water's on. Just by a quick view, you can see what's going on with it. And then when you go into the product, you're in a very thin layer of that product. And wherever you are in the product, you can always get back to this dashboard. Now, again, with the competition's mainly built for that 1%. It's mainly built for the early adopters. Hive is for everyone. And that's the bar, which is a very high bar in terms of a product and design target. So then the next part is when you've got all those products, how are you going to get them to work with each other? So you've got things called, what we call recipes. Other people have defined that word before us. And that's just about, I've got one thing going off that then sets up another thing. That's a very, very hard thing to talk about. Also, some of those products, as I showed you before, they're fairly boring. Smart plug, motion sensor, they're very boring, dull products, but it's the experience you can create. So all of a sudden, our marketing, our communications needs to change to, you know, when my daughter Lily walks home from school, she's never going to enter a dark home again, because we're going to know when she's coming in, opens the door, all the lights go on, or certain lights go on. That's the recipe. And then all of a sudden you give that idea to customers, that canvas that they can play on, they can draw on, becomes the most important thing within our product. So recipes will be the biggest thing that we do next year. So we've already started to do a few, but the amount we're going to build out in 2017 really will be drawn on by what customers want to do. And then just a couple of other things that we've done this year as interfaces change, you know. So at the moment, it's mainly the mobile app, but we know voice has been a massive thing this year. So I think we're one of the biggest applications that's used on Alexa. We were a partner with Amazon Alexa when it first came out. Again, there are certain use cases that are going to be great for Alexa, but you're not going to do everything on it. It's the same again with the mobile app. It's the same with the thermostat. It's every interface is going to have its place. One's not going to take over from all the others. And in addition to that, we know that certain customers would like a few things working together. And I think this is probably one of the biggest challenges we've got in 2017 is, you know, how do we, by design, open up our platform? I don't mean open it up so everyone can do something, because what's critical for us at Hive is that we maintain that experience. Everything works perfectly as we want to design it. The only way you can absolutely guarantee that is if you design everything yourself. But in this day and age, you're not going to be able to do that. So bit by bit is how do we bring other people onto our platform, but we are sure we don't lose the customer, we don't confuse the customer, and we just improve that experience. And our relationship with IFT, we've started to do that and started to see some great results on our heating channel. So I've rushed through that because I know you probably all want to get to lunch, and as I said, it was about a bloody thermostat. A couple of things I think I'm just going to leave you with. So we started as I said, as a startup invested with investment from Centrica. As you get more success, that creates a challenge. And any corporate just likes to put their arms around a successful product, a successful business. But there's a reason why you were successful. So we really have to maintain and believe in that. And the way I I try and describe it is, you know, customers don't care about PowerPoint slides. And what I mean by that is 90-odd% of what you do has to be seen by the customer. You can't just be delivering a corporate way, and I'm not saying that's just Centrica, I'm talking corporates in general. You've got to be still that lean, agile, startup type mentality. So really, it's all about, I want the guys spending more time with customers, or, you know, less time on this sort of stuff. As I say, use that headline really to sort of make that point. And then a couple of other things, I've talked about it before, and I really believe this, which is, you know, as product people, there's probably quite a few in the room, it really is about what is our job. It's not about how someone's going to buy it, whether it's subscription or one-off. Our job as product people is to create that magical moment. Some of you have done it when you've created products. I've shown you a couple of examples. We've got our own examples, and I say they can be as dull as mum being able to boost the hot water. Whatever that magical moment is, and the best way to describe it is it's almost like that person is the first person ever to have experienced that thing. And they're almost as like a smugness. That, for me, is product design, and that's what our whole business evolves around. And then the final one, and this is a challenge for product people, is we really do need to know when to stop. Because as a product person, I always use Sir Johnny Ive as this example, is he'll never design the perfect iPhone. He always has to draw a line at some point on that thing. And it's the same for product design people. We would continue to design and build before we put it out there. But one of the things that we need to know is that, again, religious belief of when to stop, when to give it to the customer. Thank you.